Well, here we begin discussing this book, Understanding Media, the Extensions of Man. Um, you know, it's a book. It's a fun book, actually. It's a lot of fun. I mean, I think, if one of the major theses that McLuhan is proposing is that the advent of electronic communications is changing forms of human consciousness, forms of perception, ideas of all sorts. And that one of those changes is a change in our notion of rationality. One might call it linear rationality, that we're moving away from a certain type of understanding of logic and an understanding of what rational thought consists of. Then, if that's one of the things that he's proposing, and I think that it is, then certainly his own work would look a little different. And it wouldn't look like the kind of carefully argued it wouldn't employ the same type of rationality that he thinks is actually going into eclipse. I don't know if that, is something that a claim like that will bear scrutiny, but that really depends on how you view the fundamental thesis, which is what? Well, I think I just stated it to some degree, but certainly this seems to be, kind of incredibly important. But what could he possibly mean by that? The medium is the message. Well, let's say what he's arguing against. He mentions David Sarnoff, very important figure in American development, American television, controversial figure. But David Sarnoff, as an example of somebody who doesn't get it, calls him a somnambulist, a sleepwalker, somebody who just doesn't realize that the world has changed and is sort of still walking around thinking that he's living in the old world when he lives in a new world. And the Sarnoff position seemed to be something like this. A medium is just form, the way that a particular, I can't type. I think it might be a fairly good representation of what the Sarnoff position is, which is the sort of the standard position, I suppose. The medium is just form, the way that a particular content is delivered. It is the content, not the form, which is important, which is to say, I guess Sarnoff was defending television. Television is neither good nor bad. What's important is the content. It can be good if it delivers good content. It can be bad if it delivers bad content. Now, there's something, I think, very common sense and almost undeniable about that statement. We've all watched good and bad television, and we know the difference. We've all seen good and bad films. We've read good and bad books. Things which share a form, or at least to share a medium, but which are incredibly different in their quality, right? So in one way, I think what Sarnoff is saying is generally common sense. It's undeniable. So what is Sarnoff supposedly missing? Missing the effect of the medium itself on people. That is, that what McLuhan is saying is that the medium itself has an effect. That the particular content supposedly that is being delivered is secondary to the way that it's delivered. Now, McLuhan will go so far as to say that television is at its best when it's delivering trash, that there is a sense in which commercials are the most well-developed and brilliant example of television as an art, right? I know that sounds crazy, but that seems to be something that he believes, which I think has something going for it. But the point is that if we just believe that it's content that matters, right, then we'll miss the effects of the new media on us. If we just think, well, the problem with television, or the point of television, is not that it's a new force in itself. It's how that force is harnessed, right? And it's just like people say, it's just a tool, and it's neither good nor bad. It depends on how it's used. That's the kind of thing that McLuhan is really arguing against, saying that no, the emergence of a new tool is in itself going to have all sorts of effects, probably good and probably bad, but definitely important on human life. That if you simply say, well, the point is to deliver good content, then you'll miss what's going on right in front of your face. Now, I don't know if that's true, but I believe that is what something of what McLuhan is getting at. So if the medium is the message, the medium itself will have profound effects on us. The medium itself will, irrespective of what sort of so-called content it delivers, it will have an impact on us. Now, this notion that, what kind of effects on us? Ways of thinking, ways of perceiving, imagination, kind of ideas, etc. I mean, you can just go on and on in terms of the effects, what these so-called profound effects of new media will be on us. Ways of thinking, perceiving, imagination, and kind of ideas we're likely to have, etc. And in saying this, that thesis. Let's see. In saying this, McLuhan's certainly not absolutely original, right? When he says that it's changes in media, in communication technology, basically, or the kind of media that changes in communication technology make possible, that may have been a novel thesis at the time. But the notion that changes in our environment generally result in changes in consciousness is an old idea. I guess that if you want to, do a little background reading, it was certainly Marx who, under the influence certainly of a philosopher named Hegel, but it was really Marx who set this thesis out in some kind of systematic way. It's called historical materialism. The idea that forms of material life and basically economic life produce changes in human consciousness. Another thinker of the time, a little bit before Marx, Thomas Carlyle. How do you spell Carlyle? Wrote something called, what was it called? The essay, I forget. I'll give it to you in the next lecture or the next video, but also suggested that changes in environment produce changes in sensibility and consciousness.